This is what we need to do. This is going to bring that school to the next level.
That's thinkering. This thinkering process is going to be really transformational to all subjects that we're talking about.
The value of the alliance is it's a thinking collective. Now we have a greater understanding amongst everyone. And that's not what's common in schools.
I always tell our students this can set you apart, make you stand out, something to remember you by. It's an opportunity to share. It's win-win all around.
I think the biggest part of what we do are the humans that we work with on the other side of that, right? Really see the human impact, the way that they're interacting and working with their community.
It really does have to flip. You should be able to think about that as your hero's journey, to be able to go, this is how I was able to overcome.
And they really have this drive to want change. And I feel like continuing that mission is really important.
Hey everybody, welcome to Thinkering Minds, where we explore how curiosity can drive educational experiences that build learners into doers. Today we have with us Bill Cotter from Students Shoulder to Shoulder. He's here to talk about experiential learning and developing the next generation of ethical leaders. Thanks for being here, Bill. Tell us more about Students Shoulder to Shoulder.
So my name is Bill Cotter, and I'm the Director of Programming. Students Shoulder to Shoulder is a nonprofit educational organization, and we create programs for students around the world to practice and study ethical leadership by working with nonprofit partners across 4 different continents.
I know you have a background in anthropology and field work. Is that what got you sparked for international experiences, going to Africa and learning there?
Yeah, as you mentioned, my background was in anthropology. I was always really curious about the world, and I really enjoyed that chance to be living in different places and working with people and really getting to know their daily lives. I think the struggle I had with anthropology was really academic, and I didn't see necessarily the application of that. I really enjoyed, prior to that, I had coached, did some substitute teaching. I really enjoyed working with students. And I thought, how might I combine this interest for living abroad as well as teaching, which enabled me to find my role in international schools in China, Mexico, and then Peru. So it was a really nice balance of getting to work with students, but also getting a chance to live in different countries. Up until I got to Peru, where I worked in the Innovation Academy, of course, I really enjoyed working with students in the classroom, but I think I really struggled with the traditional classroom model, and I could see my students were struggling, and it was frustrating for both of us. And so I was looking for different models out there and was lucky enough to meet Corey Toff, who's the founder of the Innovation Academy in Peru. We met at a conference, and when I heard about his work and really thinking, how can we bring project-based learning into school? It's a traditional school model, but it's a school within a school there. And so, I had the privilege of teaching there for 2 years. I had students Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all day, which meant that, if we wanted to get out into the city to do learning, we didn't have to take the classes or anything like that. And so we took traditional subjects like finance, for example, and rather than just, studying finance or studying textbooks, we had students learning the concepts, but then bringing those concepts to life, for example, by making documentaries about financial issues that were happening in Peru. So they were going out, they were learning how to conduct interviews, they were learning how to write, to meet people, to create film, to create storylines, but also to link all of that together with the economics that they were learning. And for me, that was really inspirational to see all of those things come together. And I think the best part of it was that all of us were learning at the same time, right? So it took down that traditional model of like, I'm the teacher, I know everything, and I'm going to teach you, to, okay, like for this semester, we're going to make a documentary about an economic issue in Peru. None of us know anything about film or video making, like, let's go into this. And so it was really fun to learn together with them. And I think, my role really was as a mentor, and also I think for students to see how you can locate and filter information, because I think that's, one of the most important skills students need these days, is that there's tons of information out there, but how do you find what's pertinent, and how do you, create a learning plan around what you uniquely individually need? And so I really felt my role was to meet with those different student groups to figure out where their strengths were, where their weaknesses were, and then guide them to places where they could learn. And to me, that was really fun, because it was like just getting a chance to work with people. And I was, learning at the same time of them, and really looking at, how can we learn in different ways. So that was, as I mentioned, that was 2 years while I was at the Innovation Academy in Peru. And then during that time, I had been volunteering with Students Shoulder to Shoulder over the summer. And in 2016, an opportunity came up to come on with them full time. And I thought that would be a really great chance to synthesize, both my experience in anthropology, my experience in education, and then jump into the role of global education.
That's a great journey. The path is never straightforward. Is there a shoulder-to-shoulder project that really stands out as something you've always wanted to do?
It's hard. Everyone always asks me that, like, do I have a favorite country or favorite project? And I don't, to be honest. Each place we work is so unique. And each of our nonprofit partners that are at the center of our programming. So, whether we're in Nepal, Kenya, Peru, Costa Rica, it's not just the location, but is the nonprofit partner, the executive director and their team that we're working with. And each of them brings such passion and inspiration to the work that they do. And that for me, I think my favorite part about Shoulder to Shoulder is just having a chance to work with these inspiring nonprofit leaders and then to put students shoulder to shoulder with them. Because I think oftentimes in schools, we talk about leadership or we talk about role models in the abstract, or students are left to idolize people and think that, there's only one way of success, as opposed to, wow, there's people who have connected their passions to needs within their community. And they're doing great work, and that could be inspirational as well. And so, yeah, if you want to go out and create rockets, that's great. But if you want to learn from an inspirational leader in Kenya and then, start your own nonprofit, or just maintain what you learned as you enter Wall Street and think about, how can I balance what's best for me, with what is also best for the world? I think that kind of understanding is what we're hoping students gain when they go on a shoulder to shoulder program.
The Thinkering Collective has a mission in emphasizing humanity and education to connect curiosity to empathy and impact in the community. How does international travel and cultural experiences shape that path for a learner?
Yeah, so I think a big part of what we do, obviously we're a travel-based organization. We're traveling, we have projects on 4 different continents, and it is a part of what we do. But when I talk to students through the interview process, I think the biggest part of what we do are the humans that we work with on the other side of that, right? So we're not just going to Nepal to look at the sites and be tourists, and just take photos. We really are there to work with that nonprofit, meaning, the executive director, the team of people that they work with, and to really understand, why was this nonprofit founded? What is the work that they're doing? Why is it important? We're not bouncing around every 2 or 3 days. For our week-long programs, we're basically in the same place for 5 days. And then our 2-week plus programs, we're on site for those 14 days. So we're really trying to learn alongside the community, really see the human impact, and really stress to students that they can learn from, not just from the leaders of this organization, but also the way that they're interacting and working with their community. And then the curiosity piece obviously is huge for us. I think for all of us that have traveled, I think, curiosity about the world is what gets you out there. But for students to be there and to ask questions, we leave a lot of space for students. In many of our projects, we're doing work. We realize that, high school students are not skilled labor. And we talk to students about, we're not here to help or save. The school would have got built without us. But I think there's a lot of great conversations that happen when you break down the traditional, like, hey, I want to talk to you, ask you these questions, as opposed to like, we're lifting bricks together, or we're getting our hands dirty together. We're just next to each other. And so for the students to be next to community members, working alongside them, and be curious about their lives and have that chance to ask them those questions in a less formal setting, that's really what the work allows us to do.
How does the journey each student takes connect back to the classroom and empower them as learners and future leaders?
Yeah, I think on the call when Dr. Hoover was talking about the Pearl model, I really like that model. It's pretty similar to what we do. So before students travel, we have a pre-travel case study or curriculum where students are building context and starting to develop questions about the place that they're going, so that when they arrive on the ground, they have some basic understanding of the organization and the country that they're going to be working with. And then once we're there on the ground, our programs are called field studies, because at the end of each day, we have a reflection circle. So we have a leader of the day, and we're reflecting on the day through the lens of ethical leadership. We really think it's important not just for students to be doing the whole day, but to really step back and say, okay, what were we doing? Why were we doing this? And then how can we think about what we're doing through the lens of ethical leadership? So reflection is a really key piece of what we're doing. And I think a really key piece of experiential learning is not just, we're going to do for 14 days and then quickly talk about it at the end. We really take that time, probably an hour and a half to 2 hours each night, to really reflect on what we've been doing throughout the day. And it's a key piece of our model. And then in phase 3 for us, which is application, we hope that students come home from whatever program they were on and apply what they learned in their own communities. So we don't want it to be a one-off program where you just go to Kenya, help out for 2 weeks and come back, and that's the end of it. We really want you to think about, what did I do there? What did I learn about myself and my own community that I can now take that learning and apply it in my own community?
Being able to go on an experiential journey with the learners is a special kind of mentorship educators often don't get to participate in. Do students pick up on how special of an opportunity this is when learn experiences scale back to the classroom? How does that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the best part of my job is, mentoring teachers who are about to go into the field and lead for us, sharing what I've learned in my time at Shoulder to Shoulder, as well as my time abroad, and also mentoring our students. So I think in terms of the collective that we're establishing here, I would really like to get to work with teachers to think about, in particular, if you're not getting on planes, how does this play out in your own backyard? It's something we talk a lot about Shoulder to Shoulder, that, when we go to Kenya, we're in someone's backyard. When they come here, they're in our backyard. And so I'd really like to work with teachers and serve as a mentor to think about how can you use the place that you live, where your students are. Maybe you can walk, bike, maybe you need to get on a bus, but how can we even just remove transportation and think about how you can get students involved in your community and see that there's so many things happening in your community that can tap into your students' curiosities and passions and let them run with it. So that's my hope as being part of this collective, is to mentor teachers to see outside their classroom walls that there's so much rich learning for students that will really inspire them to learn and not have them be, thinking, school is this thing I just have to go to, but school is this thing that I'm really excited to go to.
Take a student who's never been abroad somewhere new. What's it like getting to watch that impact and curiosity firsthand as they grow? Is there a universal takeaway that most students leave with?
I think that it's really amazing to see it. There's obviously, you notice all of the differences, the food, the language, the transportation, all of that. But really, when you step back from that, in the students' last few days, what they realize is that, people are people, as silly as it sounds, wherever we are, there's people who are waking up, going to school, eating their meals, wanting to spend time with their family, trying to better themselves, trying to, fight for their education. And I think for students, that they really realize that there's many more things that we have in common than that separate us by differences. And that, to me, I think is the greatest understanding and really the greatest learning from Shoulder to Shoulder, is you realize, there's just people all over the world who are doing their best. And some of us have been given more opportunities than others, but still, we can still connect on that human level, which is what I like so much about this project too, is really, think about humanizing education. And I think that comes from a big piece at Shoulder to Shoulder, is that comes from this idea of proximity, right? You can't know someone or know a place or know an issue from afar or from a textbook. You really need to get proximate and next to it to really understand it and humanize it.
What about the educators? I imagine more of them have been exposed to international experiences, but is there a takeaway different than the students?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, obviously with the students, they have that similar takeaway if they haven't traveled before. But I think the teachers are most taken by our nonprofit leaders because they're really seeing the work that they're doing and imagining, I'm in charge of a classroom, but this particular nonprofit leader is in charge. For example, Dr. Karambu in Kenya, she runs the children's home for, I think it's now up to 82 children, right? And so when they walk away from working with Dr. Karambu, or working with Sonam and Parma in Nepal, they're running a bunch of different schools throughout Nepal in these very rural areas near Mount Everest. And I think they just see the gravity of their work, the importance of their work, but also the thing I'm most impressed with is the humility of all of the nonprofit leaders we work with. They're literally saving the world, but they're just people that you just enjoy sitting down and having a coffee with. And they don't think too highly of themselves at all. They're just humble, hard workers, really trying to work for the betterment of their own communities. And our teachers, I think, walk away with that and come back inspired to find those same leaders in their own communities. Sometimes you need to step away to come back and realize, wow, now that I'm back here in North Carolina, there's nonprofits here, there's inspiring leaders, and maybe there's a Dr. Karambu right here. And so for our teachers, I think it's that connection again of okay, I had this experience, but now how can I find these inspirational people in my neighborhood that can come in and inspire my students?
What's the shoulder-to-shoulder strategy to connect classroom learning and personal growth to real-world impact?
So after you've had this experience of being abroad or working with a nonprofit, how can you now take that experience and apply it to your own backyard? We've recently created what we've called the Applied Ethical Leadership Internship, which is a semester-long program for students who have had a shoulder-to-shoulder experience. They work with a mentor in their own school to identify an issue that they're interested in that they can get involved with in their own community. And then we bring all of those students together on a bi-weekly basis online with a mentor from Shoulder to Shoulder, so that the students from different states, across the US can talk to each other about their projects, about their passions, their interests, what's working well, what they're struggling with. And so it's really nice to have, a mentor who's on the ground, who can check in with that student on a daily basis, face to face. I think that's really important. But then for all those students to come together online with a shoulder to shoulder mentor so that they can gain inspiration from each other and the other students as well.
How does the social and emotional learning tie into the students' shoulder to shoulder programming?
Yeah, and I think it's a part that we'd really like to get involved with more. And again, I'm so excited to be part of this collective. I think the way we talk about the social emotional piece is that, obviously the big idea behind our program is that we want to inspire the next generation of ethical leaders, but you can't be a leader of other people if you can't first lead yourself, right? So if you understand yourself, where your passions lie, where your strengths lie, where your weaknesses lie. And I think it's a great opportunity for students on our programs to experience that. As I mentioned, have a leader of the day, where we give students the chance to lead, to succeed in that, to fail in that, and just to understand what does it feel like to have a group of people who I'm trying to guide throughout the day, and how important is my own health and my mental health and making sure that I do that in an effective way. Another piece of our program is that our programs are tech-free. And so I think especially for this generation to step back from their phones and be completely immersed in the environment. On day one, you have 10 kids who've never met each other, sitting in an airport, staring at each other, no phones. And it's like, how do we do this? This is really awkward. Students aren't used to that awkward silence. And then by day 2 and 3, they're playing cards, they're playing games, they're just talking to each other. And I think for students, there's just this huge weight that comes off. And I think that's a key piece, especially of student mental health, is realizing that I can step away from the technology, be immersed in the environment I am in, and also be immersed in the conversation I'm in, as opposed to like trying to talk to someone while, texting someone while doing this other thing and doing this other thing. So I think for us that mental health piece really is connecting with inspiring leaders, but also stepping back from technology. Recently, we partnered with an organization called Groundswell, and it's a nonprofit that we're working with, but they are actually focused explicitly on mental health. They're using the ocean as a way to talk about mental health and as a way to empower students and adults even to use the ocean as a way to better themselves and a way to connect themselves kind of back to the earth and kind of step back from technology. So I think mental health will take an increasingly more importance in our programs, and we're definitely looking for more partners that are working in that space to inspire our students.
As a kayak angler, I try to do that and connect back with nature every weekend I can. What's the ideal partner look like for shoulder to shoulder?
Yeah, it's hard. Some people say, like, how do you find your partners? Most of the time it comes from word of mouth. I think there's an intersection there's obviously lots of great nonprofits out there who are doing amazing work. But they first of all have to have something that our students, high school students can get involved with on some level. So as I mentioned, obviously we're not skilled labor, but if they're building a school, if they're teaching and our students can be in a supportive role, we never displace local labor or anything like that. But if we can, be supporting the construction in some way, or we can be supporting the teachers in some way, or we can be supporting research in some way, that's really important for us. So our nonprofits need to have something hands-on that our students can do. They need to have an interest in education and working with youth. Again, there's a lot of nonprofits that they're doing amazing work, but they might not necessarily have the time or energy to dedicate to high school students and really developing those high school students, which is fine. And then, the third piece, which is hard to really quantify, but is that inspirational aspect. We look for nonprofit partners who have this story that you can really hold on to inspire our students. We want them to look up to our nonprofit leaders, to see them as mentors, to see them as moral example. And so I think that combination of, having hands-on work, being interested in the education of high school youth, and having that inspirational nature to them is a key aspect of all of our nonprofit partners.
What's the big challenge and opportunity to take on in 2025?
For us right now, I think it is, as I mentioned, we're still, we're a small team of 3 people. Last year we had just over 200 students on our program. And I think for us, the next opportunity is really trying to scale that up. We've seen the impact that these programs have on students, but we would like to increase the number of students that we're working with each year, So ideally, I think in the next 5 years, if we could be working with over 1,000 students, to me, that would we'd start to see this impact, ripple out from there.
Speaking on that ripple effect, how does this play into humanizing education in the future? What does that future look like?
For me, a humanized education is, I guess it's clear from everything else I've said here, but is really getting students out into their communities. I think oftentimes schools are separate from the communities that they're in. And so students feel detached from what they're learning and detached from their work because they feel like I don't really see the point behind this particular subject I'm learning because it has no connection to my personal life. And those connections are really alive and right there. And I realize there's logistical issues about, getting students outside the classroom. But to me, the only way to humanize education is to get students close to the people and issues within their own community to get them curious. Without that, we're just looking at books or looking at screens, and there's no humanity in that. It's hard for me to learn in like a traditional setting. Even now I do, like, we'll take online classes or something, and I'm like, man, can I just record this and watch it like 3 times speed when I need to, or 1 time speed when I need to? But, to think that 25 people can all learn the same thing at the same pace in the same modality is just, we're fooling ourselves.
When collaborating with Thinkering Collective as a partner, what excites you the most?
I think, as you can tell, I'm really interested in human stories and people who are doing great work. And so I think for me, I work remotely. I spend a lot of time behind the screen. And so even if it's behind the screen with the Thinkering Collective, meeting other people, even just the call yesterday to have the chance to hear the stories of different people in so many different areas, thinking about education and really pushing the boundaries of education, I'm really excited to be a part of a group of people like that. Again, on a small team of 3 people. And so to get outside of that and to have people that I can bounce ideas off and be inspired by, ideally grab a coffee with at some point, that's really exciting to me. I mean, just those human connections are so important. I mean, the whole reason that I agreed to this and excited to be part of it is that I was connected to Evan a few years back through someone that had met him, in our work with Shoulder to Shoulder. We met in New York and had coffee and chatted. And it's just like those connections that make you're like, all right, yeah, like whatever Evan's doing, I'm on board with, because, he's human to me. I've sat down, I've had coffee with him. I understand what his mission is, what his vision is. And I think it's important for, to bring a collective like that together and for all of us to be fueled, especially if we're feeling disconnected or if we're all working remotely, to have that like infusion of passion and inspiration from each other is really important.
What's the best way for an educator or school to get involved in one of the Shoulder to Shoulder programs?
I mean, obviously you can check out the website, which is www.shouldertoshoulder.com. But I think more importantly, as part of this collective, to reach out to me by email. I think to set up a call or a Zoom is really the best way. Oftentimes teachers will come to our website and they'll see, you only go to these locations, or you only work with students during the summer. And that's a part of what we do. But behind the scenes, we do partner with schools and we partner with educators to build customized programs of all sorts, whether it's, a custom program for a school in Costa Rica or a custom backyard project for a school that wants to do something in their own community. So I would just encourage educators to reach out to me. Let's start with that curiosity. Let's have a conversation and see where it goes, as opposed to being constrained by, oftentimes people are constrained by what you see on the website. So I'd say, just send me an email. We'll set up a call and then figure out where we can go with your interests.
You heard Bill, folks. Get in touch and start figuring out how your students can learn shoulder to shoulder. We appreciate you and that awesome work your team does. Until next time, everyone, stay curious. We can all do this learning thing together, shoulder to shoulder. Let's keep thinking.
Love the term thinkering, and we'll definitely use it in my classroom. The kids will love it.
This is where we can be that peer support network with each other. When the big picture clicks, it's beautiful when you get administrators and teachers together.
You can't be a leader of other people if you can't first lead yourself, right?
Help the educator have a very clear and structured framework.
Becomes this real community hub. If you're a great educator, you're looking for the most powerful moment. Can we inspire kids to believe that the world needs who they were made to be?
I hope that you guys continue to uphold that legacy and continue, finding kids like you.